Some secrets don't stay buried. No matter how deep you dig, no matter how many years pass, the truth has a way of walking right back into your life, sometimes in the form of a 6-year-old boy pointing at a stranger on the street. William Carter was the kind of man people talked about before he even walked into a room. 3 counties wide, his name carried weight. He owned more land than most men could ride across in a day, more cattle than he could count, and a reputation that made other men straighten their backs when he passed. But wealth has a strange way of making you believe you are in control of everything, including things you never actually understood. That afternoon, William was walking through the crowded main street of Millwood with his young son, Daniel, just 6 years old, small hand wrapped tight inside his father's large one. The boy's eyes were wide and alive, drinking in everything: the horses, the market stalls, the pigeons on the rooftop. William barely noticed any of it. His mind was already at the next deal, the next acre, the next number. That is the trap wealth lays for good men. It fills your eyes with the future until you go completely blind to what is right in front of you. Daniel stopped walking. His whole small body went rigid, like someone had pressed a hand against his chest. William looked down, slightly irritated. "What is it, son?" The boy said nothing at first. He simply raised his little finger and pointed toward the far edge of the sidewalk, near the broken wall of an old supply shop. A woman sat there on the ground. Her dress was torn, faded to a colorless gray. Her face was hollow, her cheekbones too sharp, her lips cracked from days without proper water. She held out a trembling hand to everyone who passed. And everyone passed. Not one person stopped. Most people never see what they choose not to look at. "Papa," Daniel whispered, and his voice had a strange steadiness in it, the kind children sometimes have when they know something adults are trying to deny. "That is my mother." William felt the words hit him somewhere behind his ribs. He almost laughed, almost dismissed it the way parents dismiss a child's strange imagination. But something stopped him. Something cold moved through his chest. "Daniel, your mother passed away 4 years ago," William said carefully, keeping his voice low. "We said goodbye together. You were there." "I know where we went," the boy replied. "But that is still her." William looked again, and this time the woman looked up. Her eyes, dark, warm, shaped like still water at dusk, locked with his. He had looked into those eyes thousands of times across a kitchen table, across a pillow, across the most ordinary and extraordinary moments of a shared life. His legs forgot what they were for. Before he could speak, she tried to rise. Her arms shook. Her legs could not hold her, and she crumpled forward onto the dusty ground and lay still. William did not think. He moved. He gathered her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, as though the years had slowly taken everything from her, and carried her to the closest decent hotel. He called a doctor. He sat beside the bed and waited, with Daniel pressed against his side, the boy's hand still reaching for hers even as she lay unconscious. The doctor said she had been starving for months. Old injuries on her back and shoulders, the kind that come from cruelty, not accidents. She was alive, but barely. Here is something worth thinking about. The people we walk past on the street every single day carry entire histories inside them. Pain we never see. Love that never fully died. We assume their story is simple because we do not want to stop long enough to read it. When the woman woke, her first word was his name. Her name was Helen. She was his wife. And she was not dead. 4 years earlier, her identical twin sister, Clara, had come to visit. Clara fell gravely ill during the visit and died in her sleep one night while William was away on a long business trip. When he returned and saw the body, he assumed, as did everyone, that it was Helen. The resemblance was absolute. The funeral was fast. The grief was real, and the mistake was never caught. But Helen was alive, and she had made a terrible choice out of love. His business partner, a man named Harlan Cole, had come to her while the body of her sister still lay in that house. He showed her falsified documents. He told her William was deeply in debt, that the ranch was nearly seized, that she and Daniel would inherit nothing but shame and poverty. He told her the life insurance tied to her name was the only thing that could save them, but only if she stayed gone. Only if she let Clara's death become her own. She had wept for 3 days. Then she had walked away from everything she loved, believing it was the only way to protect the two people who mattered most to her. Harlan Cole had lied to her completely. The ranch was never in danger. He had simply wanted her gone so he could manipulate William's decisions without a clear-eyed wife asking the right questions. Here is the lesson that cuts deepest. Evil rarely announces itself. It usually arrives wearing concern on its face, carrying a folder of convincing papers, speaking in a calm and reasonable voice. The most dangerous manipulation is the kind that makes you believe destroying yourself is actually an act of love. Helen had lived in Millwood this whole time, in shadows, in alleys, watching Daniel from a distance as he grew. She watched him chase dogs and trip over his own boots and grow taller each season. She told herself he was fine. She told herself her absence was her greatest gift to him. She had been wrong, and somewhere beneath the hunger and the fear she had always known it. William went to the sheriff the next morning with every piece of proof he could gather. Harlan Cole was arrested before sundown. Some wrongs cannot be fully undone, but they can be answered. More than that, William sat with himself that night and asked the honest question every person must eventually ask. How much time had he spent at his desk, at his deals, at his plans, while his son grew up half an orphan? While his wife suffered close enough to touch? Wealth had not protected his family. Awareness would have. Presence would have. A husband who looked up from his ledger long enough to notice what was actually happening in his own life. That would have changed everything. Helen came home. She walked through the front door of the ranch house slowly, like she was afraid the floorboards might reject her. Daniel ran to her and buried his face in her side and did not let go for a very long time. That evening, the three of them sat on the porch as the sky turned copper and rose. Daniel talked without stopping, filling in 4 years of stories, and Helen listened to every single word as though each one was water and she had been thirsty for years. William watched them and understood something clearly, maybe for the first time. He had always thought his richness was measured in land and cattle and contracts. He had been wrong about that too. The real things, the ones worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth crossing a dusty street to reach, are not kept in any safe. They sit beside you on a porch at sunset. They hold your hand in the dark. They recognize you even when you are broken, even when you are sitting on the ground, even when the whole rest of the world has chosen to walk past. Pay attention to your life. The most important moment is usually not the one you are planning for. It is the one already happening right in front of you, and the only question is whether you are present enough to catch it before it disappears.